Hey, good morning, guys. Up and at 'em. That's right. It's Monday, the 27th of July. So, what are we going to talk about today? We'll talk about, have you ever kind of wondered why some businesses do well while other ones is crickets? Stay tuned. Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric. If you didn't already know it, yes, this is the weekday, Monday through Friday. Today is Monday, the 27th of July of 2026. You know, it never ceases to amaze me of business is business, right? But there's core things that take place in business that you have to be acutely aware of. And if you're not doing it, you're probably not going to be in business long. And that is, you need to have vision. And what do I mean by vision? I mean, you need to be able to look down the road and adjust your business. It's kind of like the Titanic with the ice cube. If they would have just kind of turned, they wouldn't have hit the iceberg. But here they did do a course correction, and eventually, what ends up happening, they crash. All right. Could have been completely avoidable had the business owner wanted to do a course correction. But if you get into that mode of, okay, it worked 2 years ago, it worked last year, it's going to work this year, not so fast. The market changes quite a bit from year to year, but it takes a couple years to catch up, if that makes any sense. When manufacturers come out with a new machine, a lot of times you don't see it hit the market for 4 to 5 years. They've already got it to the production stage, but they're not releasing yet. So, one of the things that, I have a friend that owns a shop here in town, and he sells Simplicity, Husqvarna, Steel, uh, Mahindra. And it used to be his dad had the business, okay? And his dad wanted to retire. So his son, John, and two other friends decided to go in together on it and buy the old man out and expand. So they did. They bought him out, they expanded to two locations and then three because they figured there's three of them, the more the merrier. And things were working out pretty decent, right? And that's when people were still coming to the shops to buy parts, get repairs done, and spend their money there. All right, fast scale it ahead. One of them passed away, which is related to me. The other one retired, took a step back, and John is left trying to manage the businesses. They had a fire at the one location, never built back. The other location that they had, they were basically doing a pickup and then hauling them back to their main building. John got rid of that too. So now it's down to one store. And he does a lot of floor planning. It's phenomenal the amount that he does in a year. But in saying that, anytime I've walked in there this past year into the showroom, it's crickets. There's nobody there other than the owner and maybe one employee. And he's had to let a couple of them go because it's slowed right down, and he doesn't understand why it slowed down. It's the market changed. You didn't change, the market changed. And the market went to buy all your parts online because you can get them cheaper. Go to YouTube and watch videos and figure out how to fix your stuff instead of having someone charge you $120 an hour. So if you weren't gearing that direction, I saw the issue with the parts, okay? Because we're doing a lot of parts, right? And it was one of the first things I did was stop restocking. Let's unload as fast as we can go. And to my credit, I guess we did well. We got quite a bit of it gone in a hurry. And because I could see what was happening in the market and where it was going to end up. It was already starting here, but it would take a couple years to get into the system. And then what would happen? The parts market for the manufacturer, distributors, and the dealers crapped out because China decided to go direct to the consumer. And I knew back then I could not compete with a country. Bad enough competing with other distributors and manufacturers. But when it comes to a country that's got a zillion people all on their staffers competing against you, it's kind of a hard uphill task, right? They'll take a loss just to put you out of business. I know that for a fact because they tried doing that. But had I not seen the writing on the wall, I would have been heavily laden with a lot of parts inventory. And that's what kind of gets me to this day is you guys that are floor planning. A lot of times they're required to buy so much in parts inventory. And they're taking a loan out on it. The problem is you're not going to be able to sell those parts for what you're paying for. I can tell you right now. You might squeak a few in for the repairs and stuff like that, but to physically sell it to a customer, a walk-in that's going to pay you top dollar ain't going to happen. Case in point, we picked up a Murray zero turn the other day, and she had told us that she bought a set of blades for it, but they weren't the right ones, so she sent them back. Could I find the right ones and put them on? Yeah, well, we got it here. So I looked, and the cheapest place I could find it and the quickest place I could find it is going directly to Briggs. Briggs online and order it directly through them and have it shipped right to my door. That's the manufacturer competing with their own distributors, their dealers, and so forth. Because I wanted them here, so we did a service on it, so we're just waiting on blades at this point. So I wanted to get it in quick. Now I have an account with Briggs too, so but I went the other route of not even using the account. Because I find sometimes you can get it just as fast as an individual than you can if you were a dealer. eBay had them at $37 a piece. And that's about what I give for these shipped to my door. But that's one of the reasons that I tell you guys, don't, if you're going to get into this or get into any business, keep your debt number low. Debt is not a bad thing. It's if you can use somebody else's money to get into it and you know you can pay it back, that's fine. But if you get into something and you lose your shirt and you screwed a bunch of people that you took loans out with, that's not right either. That's not good business. So, what's the guiding light? The guiding light is being able to foresee what the market is going to change to and then adapting. And if you're not willing to adapt as a business, then you're not going to make it. That's why some do really well and others do not. Is there another angle to that? Yes. The ones that seem to be doing well treat their customers as number one. The way I look at my customer is they're taking the time to invest in me and make my business succeed. I'm going to do the best I can for them. That's the simplest model I can tell you, that mantra that I march to. I want to do the best by the customer as I can. And sometimes that means I take the hit. And they know it. And they're like, we don't want you doing that, Eric. I said, yeah, but that's how I run my ship. So treating your customers is paramount. You know, you can't be a dick and you can't be this angry old fool, even though we had this one guy that run Jim's gas station. I know I'm getting off on a tangent, but he was always grumbling and always grumbling around us kids. And when I was really young, I thought he hated us with a passion, and that was just Jim. But then one day I see him kind of chuckle at something I said to him, and he smiled. And I'm like, really? So we got used to Jim grumbling a lot. He hated this, he hated that. But, when it come time for early summer when the school was out and we wanted to go tubing down the river, Grass River, Jim was the one that saved up the tubes through the winter, patched them all, and had them ready for us kids to go down the river on. Yes, we didn't even have chaperones. And I was like 10 or 11 years old. We lived on the wild side, right? Compared to now, you got to have two forms of flotation devices around you and, a red thing that shoots in the air in case you start to roll. I look like a lobster. By the time I get down to where we took the tubes out and walk back to the house, when you're on water, it reflects. And I'll tell you, when you're as white as I am, you turn red, all red. But it was worth it. We had a great time. There would be like 8 or 10 of us kids together going down through, holding on to each other's tubes and so forth. And we all survived. That's the way kids should be today. Take the phones and the iPads away from them and let them enjoy life. Let them use their imagination. So, even though he was grumpy, everybody knew Jim as he was a great guy. He'd do anything for anybody, right? And his business showed. The parents did not, notice that Jim was saving those tubes and stuff. They saw it. They knew exactly what Jim was up to. And they repaid him in kindness by bringing their vehicles to Jim anytime they needed an oil change, brakes done, tires, you name it. And Jim was always quite a bit higher than going to the bigger village, to the car dealers. Well, Gramps said you got to support your local people that support you. And he was right. It's easy to pay some corporate person that you don't know and get a cheaper price than to pay somebody you do know that's trying to put food on their table. So, how you treat your customer is probably number one. Two is going to be a big thing is price. What are you charging an hour, and how do you justify what you're charging per hour? Okay, and I use the thing with the bigger shops. Well, they got more mouths to feed. Well, that was their choice, but they have more bodies that are working. So if they have to make 120 an hour to pay the bills just to keep the basics, how many mechanics do you have working, and how many mechanics are busy for that 8-hour shift? They should be busy at least 7 hours of billables per person. Here, I know I have zero debt. Okay. That's the way I like it. I work when I want to work, and we take on what I want to take on, and I'm doing it for half of what the going rate is. Half. Because I look at my numbers and I want to make sure that my numbers are going to match up at the end of the year, that it still stays profitable. We have come up over the last few years in our hourly wage, but not at taking away from anything else. So number two is going to be price doesn't always dictate whether you're going to get that customer or not. I had customers that thought the more they paid an hour, the better quality work they got. And that necessarily isn't true, but if that's what they believe, all right, I'll charge you 120 instead of 65. How's that make you feel? They're going to go to somebody that gives them quality work. We've talked about this before, and I use you a lot, Jason, because you're a decent mechanic. Is something that could take me 2 hours of billables might take you 15 minutes because you've done it so many times that you know exactly what you're doing. Where I'm kind of henpecking my way along, right? So in reality, if you're charging 120 an hour and you do it in 15 minutes and you're doing it half-hour increments, you're actually cheaper than I am in the long run. And customers notice that. You know, if you got a guy that's charged 120 an hour and he's knocking stuff out half-hour increments, where other shops are spending 2 hours doing the same job and the quality is there, Jason's the one to go see. And Jason's going to always have a line of people because they're not only looking at how much they're paying an hour, it's how quick the job is done and done right. And nothing leaves the shop unless it gets the rubber stamp of approval by everybody. Years ago, you could order your inventory based on last year's sales, almost part for part. Okay. Now, since they're discontinuing and back ordering and not producing anything over 4 years of age for parts, it gets difficult, right? So, getting heavily laden with parts is not the right thing to do in this environment that we're in right now. I mean, I want to hear from you guys that are floor planning. Are you doing okay? You know, are the margins there that you can make money? Or do you feel like you're chasing your tail and you're getting in debt more and more every year? I'm hearing more and more every year. And I blame the manufacturers for that. They're putting the screws to their own dealers. At what cost? So that they get their numbers. See, the dealer can't set the numbers on the units. That's the manufacturer, right? And if you want to be a dealer, you have to sell at or close to that range. Manufacturer decides, okay, it costs us 200 to make it. We're going to charge 400 to our dealer, so we make 200 per unit, and then the dealer makes $25. Yeah. So in the comments, what do you guys think? What are the reasons that some business stay longevity and the other don't? You got customer service, you got the quality of the work that you're doing and putting out, and how you treat people, and how well you're connected to the community. You need to, if you're doing good enough, we donate to 2 scholarships for the schools for the kids. We donate money to the churches for Christmas, Thanksgiving. You know, we don't have a lot of excess money to spend, right? But you have to show that you're willing to help the community too, because you're part of the community, right? And they'll notice that you're helping out with scholarships and turkeys and the fixins and all that stuff. On that note, you guys have a great day.